Hey, Steve Riley, welcome to this episode of Great Practice, Great Life. And I am so excited. A Atticus community friend, a personal friend, and the Chief Encouragement Officer of Compete Every Day is here today to talk about not one, but two of his new books. And that's my dear friend, Jake Thompson. Jake, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Dude, Steve, thanks for having me. Excited to run it back with you today. And a few of our friends in the community will probably remember us being together a few years ago at Summit. So I'm excited to hang out this afternoon.
Well, I'm glad you're here because your first book, Compete Every Day, was absolutely fantastic. I signed it in our group programs. Your second book, Lead Better Now, is one of my favorite books because it's like how to accidentally get promoted. I should say accidentally get promoted. You get promoted, but now you're accidentally leading a team, which is something that happened to your wife. And I think it's one of the best leadership books I've ever read. And I've read a ton of books. And now you've just published The Line and then
Yep.
Beat Yesterday. And I'd like you to talk a little bit about The Line and Beat Yesterday so you can use that to encourage our audience, encourage our community to take their game up, whether it's make more money or to be a better dad or to be a better whatever. That's what I'm gonna ask you to do today.
All right. Let's do it. Let's do it. So we talk about making more money, right? And money is that byproduct of the inputs, of the value we add, the service we provide, our positioning in the marketplace. And for most of life, we focus on the outcome, being the best. I have to be the best practice attorney. I have to be the best. And the best is a moving target. And it's a really dangerous place when you live at this constant pursuit of the best, because you could be the best in your area right now. But if everybody around you is not really that good, what does being the best say? Right? It doesn't mean you become your best. It just means you've cleared average. And Beat Yesterday really grew out of this idea of why pursuing the best is actually the wrong target. That's one of the core premises of the book, and I love that you talk about that. I love that you're helping people on that because I think that's the biggest miss in society today. We assume others' achievements, one will fulfill us, or that's what we need to pursue. And then we look really confused at that practice owner who doesn't seem to always be chasing the money because they care about never missing one of their kids' soccer games. And they don't try to puff their chest out when they come to an event or they show up at Summit. They're not trying to prove anything because they're like, this is the game I care about. This is what I want to do. And what people miss, this is the thing that fascinates me. We look at the best of the best. And I'll say this in sports, and you look at someone like Michael Jordan and we think, oh, I want to be like Mike. We all wanted to be like Mike. But what we fail to take into consideration is you can't just be Mike on the court. You have to take Mike's personal relationships and his relationships with his ex-wives or his kids or his friends. And what are those dynamics, right? There's that external comparison, the ultra competitive individuals we'd call them. And so what happens most often is we envy the achievements of somebody, but if we were truly honest, we don't want everything else that goes into that. We want the relationship we have with our spouse or our kids, or we want to be able to go home some nights before 10 o'clock, right? But we just see that one little outcome. And so we get confused by it and we chase this achievement, to your point, instead of chasing greatness. And I think the thing is, we have to get clear on what are the inputs that drive the greatness we want, which is why, as we talk about, like, what's the game you want to win? What are you competing against? Well, then, like, well, if this is the practice I want, if this is the life I want, then I'm not really competing against these other practices in my town. I'm competing against my own ego to say I need to be better versus getting better. I'm competing against the complacency that tends to slip in when I feel like we're already ahead versus like, how do I actually lead my team a little bit better? How do I focus on our inputs and our customer service instead of just, well, how do I make more money? Well, how do we make more money? By providing better service. So what am I doing to train internally? And then we start to get into the rules, like what would help us grow this practice in this life? Well, I have to be willing to say no to certain things because every time I say yes, I'm saying no to other things. And one of the stories I'm always interested in by is the actor Glenn Powell. And Glenn is one of the hottest names in Hollywood right now. He's been in a zillion movies lately. But what interests me about him is he wanted to be a movie star. He's an Austin, Texas kid, wants to be the next big movie star, and he auditioned for the lead role in Top Gun Maverick, the sequel, and he didn't get it. They gave it to Miles Teller, and they still wanted him to be in the movie. He's like, "No, like, I went out for the lead. I wanted to be the lead." And so Tom Cruise and the director said, "Hey, can we meet with you?" "Yeah, sure, no big deal." So they go sit with him. And Cruise says, "What do you want for your career?" And Glenn Powell says, "I want to be you." And Tom Cruise says, "How do you think I became me?" And he was like, "You took lead roles in great movies." And Tom Cruise laughed and told him no. He said, "I saw great movies and took the role I was given and made it great." It wasn't about just the lead. It was about whatever the role was. I wanted to own it and make it great. And Glenn Powell said that completely changed his mentality because he stopped assuming I have to take lead roles. I have to do a certain thing to become that. And instead say, how do I get and be a part of great movies, great opportunities, great communities, and make my role great? And I think that's when we think about a practice owner, when we think about a parent, when we think about just how we show up in life, we get so distracted thinking I have to do that because I need to be like that person versus what's the game I want to play and how do I make myself great at that game? And when you start to do that, right, the ego is still there, but it starts to become less important because you're just focused on how I get better, how I grow better, and how I improve versus how do I make sure I look better than everyone else? I think the reason you have a 5% success rate thus far is because unlike their practice, you can't start physically where you wish you were. And the ego comes into play of, well, people are going to see me out of shape and I can't walk in if I haven't been working out, can't even run a mile right now. And all of the things of comparing themselves to everyone else and what everyone else thinks prevents them from doing the inputs. And it's fascinating though, because you think about it, what you're training yourself to do in a physical sense is be disciplined, run through the mundane, show up on the days you're motivated, show up on the days you're not. The benefits are it's no different in investing in the summit and the community, right? The benefits you don't initially see at first of the relationships, of the learning, of the growth. It's the long game. But physically, you have to invest in yourself. Me mentally more than anything, the workouts help me mentally, but energy wise, right? As much as I travel and I'm on the road and I'm on the stage, and to be honest with you, my words and credibility fall short if I show up as a slob on stage. If I show up out of shape, if I show up untucked or disheveled, if I am running on fumes all the time, you're going to have a hard time believing my message. And if I'm a client or potential client and I'm walking into your office and you look like you're put together, it doesn't matter what you look like in a Speedo, but you look like, man, you're healthy. You look healthy. You don't have massive bags under your eyes. You look like you get sleep and you work out. And I'm going to approach it a little bit differently because I'm going to believe you have the discipline. And it's a whole interesting conversation going on right now, kind of in the health and wellness space with Ozempic and kind of everything else going on, because in some areas it's shortcutting what goes into that fitness routine. And so it's some fascinating conversations, but at the core of it, for you to maintain a fitness routine, to have the energy, to have the mental clarity, to have the discipline to work through it, you're sending signals, whether you realize it or not, to other people that I'm a disciplined person who can see things through and works hard.
I want you to tell me what this quote means. It's a quote on a hot selling book. Because the greatest victory isn't beating others, it's becoming who you're built to be. What does that mean and why is that important?
Well, I think it's most important because as we've talked about today, a lot of people are going through life, they're building their practice, they're showing up day after day, and they haven't clarified their game. They don't know what they actually want to win. They don't know what they actually want to achieve to that role. They're chasing other people's achievements. And the scariest part of that is we spend our lives chasing someone else's goal, and that goal is far below what we're capable of. And so, in order to find fulfillment, in order to show up and not saying every day is going to be easy, not saying you're going to absolutely love it, but to know you're doing something worthwhile that you're going to enjoy and be proud of, it starts with focusing internally. Like, what am I doing to get better and lead better and parent better and show up better? And when you start to unlock your own potential, all of the outcomes, all the other things that we want to have happen, that we want to achieve, they start to happen for us. All the research shows that people driven to be their best end up doing far better than the people pursuing the best in the long run. But the most important part about that is we start to find fulfillment in that. And we're not constantly chasing the next big dollar. Or if I just beat that person, then I'll feel fulfilled. I'll feel complete. I'll feel successful. We find that success of every day just, hey, I got a little bit better. I added a bigger impact. I helped my kid have a good day. I had made this person smile. You start to find joy in that. And you start to collect those achievements, but they don't become your driving force. They just become the byproduct. As Bill Walsh would say, the score takes care of itself, and the score will take care of itself, but only when you become obsessed with becoming your best.